All right, how's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for tuning in to the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So I'm actually in Vancouver and I'm near an airport, so I'm in a hotel and you may hear some planes flying by. Sorry about that. There's nothing else I could do. I'm trying to get in the quietest area of the hotel as possible, but I just wanted to bring that up. So today, what I want to talk about is, are you confident in your ideas but not in yourself? So I've seen this over my life time and time and time again, especially when I was trying to kind of get into the film industry or break into it at a higher level, because I met so many different people within that industry trying to do many different things. I think a lot of times when you think of the film industry or even television, you really just think actors, directors, producers, and I don't even think most people even know what a producer does to a certain point, if they had to describe it correctly. But that's usually what you're thinking about, film, maybe a cinema photographer. You're not thinking about all the other things that are involved making a film. But if you've watched movies or television, at the end, when the credits roll, you see usually hundreds of people's names or names of different people. So I'm not going to get into the whole damn film industry, but what I did realize a lot is, especially when people were wanting for me actually to read their screenplays. So I wrote a bunch of screenplays, and I was actually one of those guys always asking people in the industry, other producers, other people that were in charge of getting financing for film, and the list goes on and on. But then when it flipped, and then I wasn't interested in chasing anymore because I hate chasing, and people were interested in me reading their scripts because we were talking about producing another film, but it wasn't my material, with some other people, with some other producers and directors. So I kind of took on the role of reading scripts. It's quite interesting that I ended up in that situation because I think I was always writing scripts and then I was obviously reading others as well. So I was a natural fit. Plus, I like to critique everything. But a lot of times I'd run across people that were actually in the industry that were successful at one point or another. And I would talk to them. And that could be not only screenwriters, producers, directors, whatever. And I realized a lot of times when talking to them that they were super stoked about a lot of their ideas, their scripts, their pitches, their treatments. They were just super excited to talk about it. But then when they would talk about themselves, it would kind of fall apart. And I could kind of relate to that because I think, at least in the film industry, a lot of times, the emotional ups and downs, because you're always getting rejected, and I always say they're always saying no, you got to say next, but it is an emotional roller coaster. And again, when you're creating, it's very stimulating and exciting, especially when you're collaborating. It's an emotional high. And I think that goes for people that make music, art, or all different types of things. It could be dance or whatever the case may be. When a lot of people are dancing, they're very excited, very happy, and then they go to a tryout and they get cut. The emotional ups and downs, I'm just giving you an idea. And the same thing in the film industry. You're working on these projects. You could be trying to sell your screenplay, your pilot, all these different types of things. Again, when you're writing it, having a great time, and then you get the hammer down, I call it, and it's a no. So I think what happens is a lot of us start to feel like failures, even though we're not really saying it or kind of showing it. Publicly, you would think we got it going on. We're all excited. We're super stoked again about what we're trying to accomplish. But then when we're not in front of people and we're kind of alone, we kind of fall into a funk. And I think a lot of times we just lose confidence in ourselves to a certain degree. And I can see that more and more. When people talked about projects, again, super stoked, talked about their personal life or anything, not even personal, but you talk about what they're doing even in the workplace, because a lot of them aren't nearly as successful as you'd think they would be, or are, because very few people make it in the film and television industry. Legitimately, I think it's less than 1%, or it's around 1% that actually make a living at it. A lot of people have real bad jobs, and then they almost get deflated. So it's kind of, and I wanted to do a podcast on how we wear all different types of faces with people. And this is kind of a perfect way to kind of mention that at least a little bit. When we deal with a lot of people, regardless if you're in the film industry, television has nothing to do with that. Again, it could be even the workplace. It could be even maybe even in the gym. It could be in many different places where, again, your ideas or the way you, I guess you could say sometimes perform, I shouldn't say perform, but the way you act in front of others, there's a lot of energy. But then when you're not with a lot of people, I'm not going to say very depressing, but it's just not, you don't feel right all the time. You don't feel successful. You don't feel like you're achieving your goals. You're not getting accomplished what you thought you'd get accomplished. You may have also all these different interpretations of where you thought you'd be at your life at that point in time. And I think a lot of people, like in the film industry years ago or television, you'd hear, oh, it takes at least a decade, 10 years to break in, which I used to say that's ridiculous because depending on where you live, what you do, who you meet, the environment, you may have been born into the industry, all these different things come into play. Some people get discovered out of nowhere. Some people are in the industry for 20, 30 years and are truly never successful. Then all of a sudden they're huge, right? Rodney Dangerfield kind of fell in that category a little bit. He had some minor success when he was younger, and he's one of the best comedians of all time. Then I think he quit for I forgot how many decades, or he just basically didn't fight for it, I guess, anymore, or try to become mainstream Hollywood or whatever you'd say. And then he came back older, much older, later in life, and he slammed. And that goes for a lot of actors and I think business people in general. You hear that they kind of fought through a lot and they weren't successful, right? But sometimes, back to the ideas, your ideas, if you truly believe in your ideas, you need to start truly believing in yourself. Because a lot of times your ideas, maybe good or bad, they're not going to always carry you. And I know you're thinking maybe I'm nuts because like the idea or the concept or whatever you're doing is what's going to lead you kind of to the promised land. The reality is you personally have to lead yourself to the promised land. You have to be the one to pick that up and keep going with it. Because once you kind of create something, I don't care if it's a song, I don't care if you're trying to create a business, I don't care what it is. For the most part, people are buying into you more than they're usually buying into your idea or your project. It's just the truth. So, and I think a lot of times people think the other way, all right, especially when they're very creative types. They think, oh no, this one song hypothetically, or this one video, or this one company I'm starting. It's the idea is unbelievable. All of a sudden, I have the next Amazon, Apple, whatever you think, Facebook, whatever the concept is, which is wonderful. I hope everyone succeeds. I'm not against that. But most of the time, those things fail, or people don't necessarily care. And the projects a lot of times come and go, or the ideas, but you're not going anywhere. So you have to really start to understand that a lot of times what you're creating now may lead to something else, that leads to something else, that leads to something else, and be much more open-minded and not getting obsessed, because I was like this. I was obsessed with certain screenplays and projects, especially after I did a couple films. I thought it was the do-all, end-all. Like, this is it. I finally I wrote a comedy called Greaseballs. It's about a dysfunctional Italian restaurant ran in Little Italy, Taylor Street. And I worked on this script off and on for, I don't even know, 15, 20 years. I'm not exaggerating. I mean, I really started writing that thing when I was very young, off and on. I'd have notes and everything. And I really thought that was going to be it. And then I heard I had to have a slate. So I wrote, I already was working on some others. I wrote kind of a horror screenplay, which I optioned originally, and then I wrote a couple pilots, and I had this slate together, and I'm like, this is it. And I'm not going to lie, I was very confident in who I was. But I had confidence in my projects, and I had a production partner who was very confident as well. I wasn't lacking there. My problem was I was so obsessed with the idea that I kind of lost who I was. And I think sometimes that happens as well, which is going to be probably the last thing I'm going to really touch on, is sometimes we lose ourselves in our ideas. and whatever we're trying to create, which some people, that's wonderful, you know. But if you have a family and you have children, you have to learn to have a balance. I wouldn't recommend letting anything destroy your life. And I know you hear all these stories. I was living in a closet, and then all of a sudden I got the call, and before you know it, I'm a billionaire. 5 years later, I created an app, and I was a student, and I quit college. And, you know, you hear all these great stories. They're wonderful. Don't let shit ruin your life. Nothing is worth ruining your life. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't sacrifice the shit out of that. And if you need to stay home with your parents to make your dream come alive, that's wonderful. Whatever you have to sacrifice, God bless you. But if you, and I've been there, if you let something emotionally, physically destroy you, if this doesn't become successful, that's entirely on you. And believe me, it's not that helpful. And at the end of the day, as much as people will be like, God, I can't believe how dedicated you are. I'm behind you. They are not going to pay your bills, and they are not going to take care of you. So you have to learn to have a balance on how to take care of yourself mentally, physically, have confidence in yourself and your projects, and beyond your projects or whatever you're trying to do. And I want to install those type of things definitely in my kids. If you have if you have children, I think a lot of us don't really take the time to help them build that confidence, but be truthful to them, especially in this day and age, that they are going to fail. You know, I talk to my two daughters all the time that, you know, I believe a lot of times failing, and I talk about this in my podcast everywhere, is what makes you who you are, not succeeding. Succeeding is wonderful. Nothing's better than succeeding, but all the failures usually along the way is what's going to toughen you up, I think make you smarter, make you much more aware, because if you keep doing something and succeeding at it, which is great, if you got billions of dollars or whatever in anything you do, but I think for the most part, if you're intelligent, you're going to realize a lot of things you're doing, you know, aren't that great. And they're really not sometimes as good as you thought they were. But, you know, whatever. I'll put that aside. I'm not even going to get into that. But please realize that there's two different types of failing, I think, a lot of times. Failure to make you stronger and failure to destroy you. You have to sometimes realize when you're going out to do whatever you have to do or you want to do, you're going to probably run across this, no matter who you are. Now, again, you may never run across this, but I would say a majority of people are going to fail going after what they're going after. That doesn't mean you quit. That doesn't mean it's not valued or it's not worth it. That just means that you have to maybe figure out another way on how to succeed. But again, don't beat yourself up doing it. Have that confidence to realize, you know what, this is just one chapter of my life. It's only one day in my life. It could be 1 week, 1 year, whatever the case may be. But really have the confidence in yourself to move forward. I always talk about that. So anyways, I just thought I would do a video on that. A video. Am I crazy right now? A podcast. I've been doing too many YouTube videos lately, traveling all over North America. When I'm doing the videos, I'm always talking about videos. I haven't been doing as many podcasts. So yeah. Oh yeah, if you get a chance, you might even want to check out some of my YouTube videos. I've been doing a lot of stuff on fitness, but I definitely thought I should do a video on this concept because I've been getting hit up again out of nowhere, people in the film industry wanting to maybe do something with me, and it's quite interesting because I haven't done anything in so long. But every time I think I'm kind of out of it and I don't care about it, more or less people come to me, and that's not because I'm successful by any means. I think we just may have had fun working together, and it's such an interesting perspective now not to be so desperate regarding anything I'm doing, at least maybe writing scripts or looking at scripts or any of those type of things. It's more or less me just enjoying the moment. And if things work out, they work out. But what I do want to do in my life now is make sure what I'm doing is exactly what I'm doing and how I want to do it, especially now that I'm 50 years old. So I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, you might want to check out my LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or connect that way. But I'm going to wrap it up there. I got to catch a flight. If you're traveling, safe travels and take care.